Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome back to On the Fringe. Hello, subscribers. Thank you guys very much for your subscription, for your time. This series is specifically for y'all.
Hmm.
So, we have started a new series. We're going to be talking about living and moving abroad as two Americans. And both Gavin and I have lived in a lot of countries. We've lived abroad for a very long time. And we're going to share some of our secrets of living abroad and also before moving to another country. Stuff that's going to be really helpful and useful for you. If you're going on vacation for a couple of weeks, it'll still be helpful for you. Right, Gavin?
Yeah, this is like one of the few things where I actually think I'm qualified to have an opinion on it. So it should be interesting. I know we've talked about this before. I've lived abroad my entire adult life. I've not lived in the US since I was 12, really, except for like 4 months when I was 21. Um, it's kind of second nature, as I think it's kind of second nature for you, Dave, because you spent a lot of your adult life abroad.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, and I think it's something we can kind of at least clarify some questions for people who might be thinking about making a move or considering it. Just some things to know, some things to help people with.
Yep. Yep, I'm with you. And like Gavin, I've lived abroad a lot of my adult life, currently back in the States, but I've lived all over Asia, also a little bit in Eastern Europe and the Caucasus, and I'll share all the experiences that I have and guess my way of going abroad. So I initially started with a study abroad. I kind of got my feet wet in Australia, and then I just dialed it up from there. So I would say culturally, US to Australia or the UK or Ireland or Canada, it's not going to be as nearly as big of a jump as it is from like the US to say Dubai or Spain or Korea or Japan. And for me, I was really lucky. I didn't even think about this when I started my study abroad. But if you have not been abroad before, or you're looking at moving abroad and doing things that are very similar to how they're done in the US, choose a country where English is spoken and the culture is very similar to the United States.
And I would actually say, in a funny way, I guess that kind of happened with me. So my first real living abroad experience was pretty dramatically different than yours. When I was 8, my parents sold the house and were like, we've always wanted to just spend a year traveling around the world. So let's do that. And they did. And I was brought along. Um, and we just traveled around the world for a year. And then we went back to the States and they were like, well, we kind of like to do this full time. So let's get our teaching certifications and we can teach abroad. And they wound up doing that for basically the next 2 decades. Um, so the first place where I lived would have been Bahrain. Now, Bahrain doesn't seem like an obvious place to move to if you've never been outside of the US before, if you've never lived outside of the US before. But everyone speaks English. It's one of the safest places I've ever lived. I say that sincerely. Um, and it has a very large American presence, large American naval presence. And it didn't feel, it was definitely an adjustment, but it really wasn't as much of a leap as I think people might imagine. Uh, Certainly, it wouldn't have been as much a leap as some of the places I later wound up moving to. Um, so yeah, it's interesting when I think about it because I guess that probably did set the tone, but I wasn't even aware of that.
Yeah.
As most people aren't when they're 12.
Yeah, I wasn't either when I was 19 and I went to Australia.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I mean, I wanted
No,
to
you don't
go,
think about it. You don't really think about it.
yeah, I
Which is,
wanted to go and study abroad. And
yeah.
okay, I'm going to spend 1 year in Australia. And I didn't really have a long-term plan other than I'm going to go to Australia and I'm going to try and find myself down there during that year. And growing up in high school, I had lost my mom when I was 13, and I didn't really have strong friendships growing up from middle school and high school. So I thought, okay, I'm going to go abroad and try and reinvent myself. And I think that's why a
Mm.
lot of people do go abroad. I mean, it's a big, drastic step to go to a foreign country, but it gives you a completely new, fresh, clean slate to go and get a new look at yourself and get a look at the world around you. And for me, it was, I think, exactly what I needed. But if you don't have a long-term plan and you just go and bounce around, then it can be really hard for you to have, I think, a long-term goal in terms of what you want to get out of being abroad.
I think let's make a distinction here. I think it's fine if you move out of the US and you don't have a long-term plan where you're going, I want to be here in 5 years, or
Hmm.
this is where I want to be in 10 years. I just want to say, if you do have that, that's awesome. If you don't have that, that's fine too. That's not a necessity at all. The thing that I think is really important is intention.
Yeah.
Why do you want to do this? In my parents' case, I don't even have to interrogate it that much. They moved abroad because they really enjoy traveling and they enjoy moving around and they like exploring parts of the world that aren't right next to the US, aren't easily accessible from the US. And they just wanted a lifestyle where they could do that more of the year. And they had already lived abroad and they just weren't particularly intimidated by it. Um, so they were very clear that's why they wanted to do it. And they went and they did it. And I think they're totally happy with their decision. But a lot of people rush into it or go like, I want to move abroad and I'll find myself while I'm doing it. And sometimes what you find out is you're the same person somewhere else and you don't know how anything works.
Hmm.
And I think you were lucky, Dave, because I think you did wind up in a place that was different, but it wasn't so different that you felt like completely alone and isolated.
Yep. Well, also, I mean, when I went to Australia, my whole mindset was I'm just going to be as open as I can to new experiences and to meeting new people.
Yeah,
And
it's so
I
important.
went down to Australia. I had a Mariners hat, and I was walking around one day with my Mariners hat on, and a Japanese guy came up to me. He's like, "Oh, do you know Ichiro?" I'm like, "Of course I know Ichiro." He's like, "Oh, I'm from Sapporo. I play baseball." I'm like, "Really? You play baseball? No shit." He's like, "Yeah, I love baseball." And I brought my baseball glove with me to Australia. And when I threw it in my bag, I thought, okay, there's probably going to be no one in Australia that plays baseball, but what the hell? I'll bring it with me. So lo and behold, I meet this Japanese guy at my university, and we start actually practicing baseball. We play catch, and then he introduces me to some other Japanese friends, and I start learning Japanese in Australia, and I'm on the university baseball team pretty much as a bench warmer. But this gives me a whole new insight into Australia and into Japan and just a completely different experience that I had no expectation of when I left the States. And I think if you do go abroad, you're going to have opportunities like this where you meet somebody from a different country in that country. And
Mm.
you have to be willing to go through those doors. And it's awkward, it's scary, it's weird. But if you go through those doors, those are where you're really going to have opportunities to grow and see yourself and see the world in a different way.
Yeah, that's an awesome story, man. I never heard that before,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah,
But
it's crazy. And it's like from
it is.
there, from
But
Australia,
I could totally see that though. I could see you doing that. And I think it is so important. Now, it doesn't mean you rush into things. It doesn't mean you throw yourself at things. It just means when the guy says, "Oh, you know Ichiro," you don't go, "Oh, who is this guy? Why the hell is he asking me?" You go, "Yeah, I know Ichiro." And things just move like solidly from there.
yep.
Um, but yeah, no, I think openness to new experience is so important because whether you want to be or not, if you aren't, it's going to take a toll on you very quickly.
Yes.
Uh, and it
And if
doesn't. No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and if you expect you go to another country, and if you expect things to be similar to how you do things, you have to have that openness and you
Yeah.
have to be willing to accept some uncertainty. Because if you can't accept it, it's going to be very hard for you to get through, even going to the bank or going to the supermarket. And you walk down the aisles and you go, okay, they only have two kinds of cereal. I don't want to have either kind of cereal. What am I going to have for breakfast? You walk around, oh, the eggs are not refrigerated. The eggs are sitting on a shelf. It's like, what the heck is this? You just have
Yeah.
to think through,
It,
okay, these guys do things in a different way, and I'm just going to have to accept the way that things are done in this country because I can't change the way these things are done.
I mean, I don't even, the opposite happens to me. I'm sure it probably happened to you. There's a great scene. I'm not comparing my life to this because it's in no way similar. There's a great scene in the movie The Hurt Locker at the end of the film where the Jeremy Renner character goes back to America and he's in the supermarket with his family and he's like disassociating in front of the cereal aisle because he can't pick a cereal because there's just too many cereals.
Yeah.
Uh, that that has happened to me. I've
Well,
gone back to, I remember one time, I think it was Texas. I think it was the Sugarland, the main Whole Foods in Sugarland. And I went back, I think it was day one. I think we were coming in from the airport, and my aunt, God bless her, was like, Gavin likes shopping at Whole Foods. He'll like this. And she brought me in, and I swear to God, I spent 3 minutes standing in front of the cereal. I don't even like cereal. I don't even eat cereal. I was standing in front of the cereal going, how does anyone make a choice? There
well,
are 50 different kinds of cereal.
I did that 2 days ago when I got back from, I'm serious. I did that 2 days ago. I walked
I
back
believe you.
and I walked by the cereal aisle at HEB and I'm like, okay, granola. How many types of granola do they have? They have granola with hazelnuts. They have
Oh
granola with
my
almonds. They
God.
have granola with chocolate. They
They
have
have
granola
Paleolithic.
with everything. And I'm
Yeah.
just looking at, I'm like, why are they all the same price? They're all like, 349. And I'm like, what is going on here? This is crazy. And it's just I put myself in decision paralysis because I'm standing there and there's people walking
Yeah.
around me and they're looking at me like, dude, just grab a box and go.
Like,
But it's like
what the hell
I
is
haven't seen this
wrong
for
with
two
this
months.
guy? Yeah.
Even though I've gone to HEB and I usually get the same two kinds of cereal, still seeing 10 varieties of the same thing,
Oh man.
it's just what am I doing?
Yo,
I have no idea
it's
what I'm buying
overload.
here.
Yeah,
It's
you
too
get
much.
it's sensory overload. And I don't think if you haven't lived outside of the US, you don't really understand this. Then you go back and you're like, there are too many options.
Hmm.
I can't because it's not like I live in a country where there are not a lot of options, but I'm not confronted with them every day. Generally, if I go to the store, I don't have that many options. There are a couple things on the shelf. Uh, I mean, I don't like, I live in a country where I don't even have to go to the supermarket. I just order it on my phone. Um, that really cuts down the options. So, it is funny when you get there and you're like, oh my God, how many kinds of cereal, how many kinds of yogurt? I can't handle even the like orange juice with some pulp, mostly pulp. I mean, it's
Hmm.
just like, dude, I'm not built to deal with this.
Yeah.
So, if you're leaving the United States, expect the opposite of that, where you're going, uh, what the hell is this? And why can't I get my Ben and Jerry's macadamia nut ice cream on demand?
Well,
Um,
on top of that too, if you're getting orange juice, you're going to be lucky to have real orange juice because half the time
oh
you're getting
yeah.
orange juice, it's water with some sort of orange artificial flavoring, and it makes Tang or Sunny D look good. I'm serious. And they put it with the orange juice and they label it as orange juice. And it's not orange juice. And you're going to take a drink of it and go, this is disgusting. And you're going to look on the back and it's got 80 grams of sugar per serving, and it's just, how can you call this orange juice? And you can't get mad, you can't get frustrated. You just go, okay, this is how it is. This sucks. I'm not going to waste my money on this anymore.
Well, it's
It's a learning
also
experience instead
it
of a
is.
instead of a situation where you go and you beat yourself up. You go, okay, I'm going to take this and I'm going to chalk it up and go, I learned something new today. And as long as you
It's
have that mindset, you're going to make
yeah.
it, regardless
You
of where you
you
go.
have to have a learning mindset. So intention is so important. Flexibility is so important. Openness is so important. And I think just realizing that you are going to make mistakes, that's okay, that's part of the process, and that you are not at home.
Hmm.
It may become your home, but you are not at home. When you move to a country, that is not your home. That is a place you have come to.
Hmm.
And that doesn't mean you have to like everything. That doesn't mean you have to accept everything. But showing up and going, "Dude, this is not like life and pick a random town.
I don't know. South Bend, Indiana.
This is not like life in South Bend. Well, you know what? When you decided to go and move to southern Italy because you saw a villa that looked nice, it's not southern Italy's responsibility to give you all that you could get in South Bend.
Hmm.
And going in with that in mind, going, things are going to be different, I'm going to have to adjust, is really, really important. Now, again, that doesn't mean you go, I have to change who I am as a person, because boy, that's a path to disappointment too.
Yeah.
But going there and going, everything's just going to be like it is at home, or I'll make it that way. Oh, it may not that's not the path to success. Let me put it that way.
No, it's going to be really challenging. And let's just say, for example, I was in Taiwan last week and I went to a cafe.
Hmm.
And this morning I went to Starbucks and got a coffee over there. And Sunday morning, so I'm at Starbucks. People that are in there doing Bible study or talking with their friends, they're hanging out. Versus in Taiwan, you've got people in the cafe sitting by themselves and they're studying or they're working, and it's completely quiet. It's like a library.
Yeah.
So the atmosphere of a cafe in the US, the atmosphere of a cafe in Taiwan are completely different. And if you expect Starbucks in Taiwan to be like Starbucks in the States, they'll probably have similar drinks, they'll probably have a similar menu, similar customer service. But
Hmm.
the reason why people go to the cafe is very different. And understanding that the atmosphere is going to be different, even if it's the same or a similar product, you can't have that same level of expectation that you have if you build, I guess, your understanding of a brand or of something in the States and you find that same thing outside the United States. There's going to be similarities, but there are also huge differences. And you just have to be willing to accept those differences because it's a different place.
You got to roll with the punches.
Hmm.
You got to roll with the punches. It's really it's important again, and the openness is a part of that. Not everything, not being able to get your favorite Greek yogurt in the grocery store is not the end of the world. Not being able to get decent bagels, not the end of the world. These are all things that, you're entering a new territory. Some things you'll like, some things you won't like. It's like life anywhere else.
Yep.
I think people living, doesn't matter if you've lived in a place for 15 years or 5 minutes, there are going to be things about it that you like, and there are going to be things about it that you don't like. Now, before we wrap this up, the first thing we'll say, and we'll expand this, of course, is that it's almost always the case that when you initially show up in a country, your first reaction is you love it. You love, love, love it.
Hmm.
Usually for about the first, what would you say, Dave? First 2 or 3 weeks?
I would say the first 3 weeks to the first month. And it all
Hmm.
depends on the country. It depends on where you're going. But if you've been on vacation, to France or to Spain or to Japan or Korea, and you're there for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, you're gonna go, this place is great. And I was the same way. The first time I went to Korea, I was there for close to 2 weeks and I traveled across the country. This was back in 2011. And
Ooh.
I ended up going back to Korea to teach English because of
Mm.
that experience that I had in my 2 weeks visiting the country. And after I moved there, 3 or 4 weeks into it, I was like, I don't like this place that much. It's very different from Japan. Koreans are very different from Japanese. And I almost had a sense of buyer's remorse where it's like, great, I'm stuck here until my contract ends as an English teacher. And what am I going to do after? But do I really
And
want to stay in Korea for the next 10 months of my life and be
yeah.
miserable?
And of course, Dave, that's totally normal
Oh, it
because
is.
you get that wonderful high of, "Whoa, this is new, this is great, this is wonderful, everything these people does is fantastic." And then you go, "Oh my God, 4 weeks in and they're all still doing it. I'm
Hmm.
going up a wall. I can't live." And that is just, for whatever reason, how the human brain works. You're really thrilled and happy. Then everything drives you crazy. Then I would say usually about 6 or 7 months in, there's another dip up, and you go, "Oh, I remember why I like this place." And then after that, things start to even out. And however you're going to feel about the place is how you're going to feel about it. But just be aware that those first couple of months, first year, really, I think, that's just a roller coaster. And
Hmm.
you got to learn to ride the roller coaster because it's going to be up and down and up and down.
Yep, it is. And
And it doesn't matter where you are.
and
That you could be moving to South Bend or South Sudan. You're going to feel that way.
most definitely. And before you get on that roller coaster, ask yourself, why am I buying the ticket? Why am I getting on this roller coaster? And try to have some sort of an answer as to why you're doing it. Is it for money? Is it for personal growth? Is it to experience a new part of the world? And I would even say write it down and put it
Yeah.
somewhere where you're going to see it every single day. So when you get up, you see that goal and you go, okay, this is what I want to get out of being in this place. And you just keep that goal close to what you're doing and you tie that in to your daily life. Because the farther you get from that goal, the more miserable you're going to be, in my experience.
It sometimes, and again, I do just want to say though, it doesn't have to be a goal. People ask me, I currently live in India, and people ask me all the time, "Well, why did you move here?" why do you live here? Like, I don't live in a tourist destination really. I don't live in an area where there are a ton. There are definitely more than there used to be, but there are not a ton of foreigners living there. And my response is 100% honest, which is when someone asks me, well, why do you live there? I go, well, I got a job here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. I didn't go there because I was on a mission for personal growth. I didn't go there because I wanted to find myself. I didn't go there because I wanted to learn the language, which I really probably should have learned more than I have. But like none of those things were in mind. I've been in a lifestyle where I'm like, if I have a job, that's enough. I got the job, I'm in the job, I'm happy. That
Awesome.
doesn't that doesn't mean I'm happy with everything. That doesn't mean I'm walking through every day going ba 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 ba, but I know why I'm there.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the key. If you know why you're doing it and you have that reason,
Yeah, that's really
that's
important.
going to give you a piece of, I would say, peace of mind and a sense of belonging. Whether it's in the country or whether it's in your local community, you're going to feel like you have a place. And that's really important. I would say it's critical
And
to
I
your
think I think
success.
it gets overlooked, and I think people sometimes because I think it's better to have an idea than not have an idea, but I
Hmm.
think sometimes people overthink it and they go, "Oh, well, I'm here because I've always wanted to experience life and oh, you just wanted to go somewhere else? Okay. Maybe you just wanted to go somewhere else. That's fine."
Hmm.
Um, I think the issue is when people lose sight of whatever that thing is, and it's like, I wanted to be happier.
Hmm.
Okay,
It's too broad.
too broad. Or I wanted to live in this very specific place and do this very specific thing for an undefined amount of time. Too specific. You might have set yourself up for failure unless you literally have a job with a contract.
Hmm.
If your dream is to be a sommelier in France, well, that's fantastic if you've worked up to it, but that might be a really hard thing to maintain. Um,
Yeah, or if
particular,
it's to fix up an old villa.
yeah. If you're fixing up, oh my God, I know a lot of people who've come to grief over that. Um, yeah, you don't want to get too broad. You don't want to get too specific. Anyways, on that interesting note, I think that's it for this one.
Yep.
You gotta know why you bought the ticket.
Yep. Yep.
You
You got
gotta
to know
know.
why. And as long as you're comfortable riding that roller coaster, it's going to take you up. It's going to take you down. Might even barf a couple of times, but
Definitely,
just
definitely barf
just
a couple of
as
times.
long as you can barf and laugh at yourself, then you're going to have a really good time,
I
regardless
mean,
of where you are.
honestly, I think you qualify as a Peace Corps volunteer if you can do that.
I think so too. I think so too.
Automatic. Anyways, thank you so much for listening. You're already a subscriber if you're listening to this, but please share this, like, comment. Thank you so much for being in the On the Fringe community. And we're so happy to have you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Ciao.